All right, so you ready to dive into something kind of crazy?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, so we're going to be looking at this whole Mark Zuckerberg thing.
Yeah.
Specifically, the removal of tampons from men's bathrooms at Meta.
Hmm.
It seems kind of minor, right?
Yeah.
Like at first glance.
Yeah.
But a bunch of people on Reddit are like losing their minds about it.
Really?
And there was the latest Justly article that kind of digs into it too.
Interesting.
So I
Yeah.
guess, what's the big deal?
Yeah, why are people so...
And where are people freaking out about this?
Exactly, yeah. So
About tampons in the bathroom.
let's just dive right in. Okay. So both the Reddit thread and the latest Jockery article say that Zuckerberg, actually ordered this change.
Oh, wow.
And it seems like this decision is happening at the same time as a bunch of other, shakeups at Meta.
Oh, okay. Like what?
They're talking about getting rid of DEI initiatives.
Right.
And even, appointing Dana White,
Yeah.
UFC guy, to the board.
Oh, wow. That's interesting. So, big changes.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about Reddit.
Okay.
It seems like, everybody's got an opinion on this whole tampon situation.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And I bet.
What are some of the...
I bet it's all over the place.
Yeah. What are some of the reactions that you're seeing?
Well, some people, I saw one user, Jupfold, thinks it's just like a practical move.
Okay.
Like maybe, not enough people were using them.
Right.
So why bother?
Oh, yeah.
But then you have these other people,
Yeah.
like Fred Fisk and Wheelaway, who are seeing it more as like a symbolic gesture.
Yeah.
They think it's like Zuckerberg aligning himself with like a certain political ideology, especially with all these other changes happening
Right.
at Meta.
And then a lot of users are, connecting the dots between this and Zuckerberg's supposed meeting with Trump.
Right.
Some people think that, he's trying to appeal to a more conservative audience.
I see, yeah.
Holtzman Jarp even joked about Zuck going to Florida to, and
Kiss the ring or whatever.
Yeah, pay his dues or something, yeah.
Yeah.
That's funny.
And it's interesting to see how this, one little thing has sparked all these conversations about, tech and politics.
Yeah.
Some users, Baytran70 and Calcium Cannons, they even compare Zuckerberg to Elon Musk.
Oh, wow.
And they wonder how much influence these, tech billionaires have on politics.
It's scary, really.
Yeah, and External Dude 779 and Frequency 3D60 brought up a really interesting point, too.
Oh, yeah.
About how some billionaires might be using their companies to, further their own political ambitions,
Yeah, as a tool almost.
Yeah, so it's just, it really makes you think, is Zuckerberg, is he playing some kind of long game here?
Yeah, that's the million-dollar question, right?
Totally.
What is he up to?
Okay, so before we go too far down the rabbit hole, let's switch over to the latest WeWhy article. They provide some more context, suggesting that removing tampons is just one piece of a larger change in Meta's overall policies. So they specifically mention Zuckerberg's decision to abandon DEI practices.
Right. Yeah, that's a big one.
Which, it's a pretty big deal.
Definitely.
And they even include a tweet from the Spectator Index, I think it was called, that, announced the tampon removal.
Interesting.
So it really adds another layer to this story, right?
It does, yeah.
It makes you think about, the practical side of things, too. What happens to the people who are actually using those tampons?
Right, yeah.
What about them?
Where do they go?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, some people on Reddit were talking about that, Adjudicator and Lafinda Stace were throwing around some alternative solutions,
Right.
Maybe offering them directly to employees who need them.
Right.
Or, finding a more cost-effective way to provide them.
Right, because let's be real, tampons they're not cheap.
No, they're not.
But then this led to another interesting thing, this idea of virtue signaling.
Oh, interesting.
Some users, French Toaster and Vain Girls, were asking if this whole thing is just a calculated move by Zuckerberg, to appeal to a certain group of people.
To make himself look good.
Exactly, yeah. So it's is this about genuine inclusivity,
Yeah.
Or is it all about rejecting a certain image? Exactly.
Yeah.
And if it is all for show, what does that say about Meta's actual commitment to creating a truly inclusive environment?
Yeah, because it undermines it all.
Right, and this brings us to a point that OK Technicians 77789 made.
Okay.
Which I thought was really important.
Yeah.
They were concerned about the consequences of a less inclusive environment at Meta.
Right.
Specifically when it comes to there are platforms policies and like content moderation.
Right, yeah.
So could this lead to like bias on Facebook and Instagram?
It's possible, yeah.
And that's a kind of a scary thought, right?
Yeah.
If the people who are deciding what we see online aren't really representative of all the different types of people,
of the different users
who use the platforms, then like, what does that mean for us?
Right. What does that mean for the content we're consuming?
Exactly.
Yeah, that's a good question.
Okay, before we like totally spiral, let's take a breath here.
Okay.
I'm curious, you know, as we're talking about all this, what are your thoughts? What stands out to you the most so far?
Oh, it's wild, right? We started with tampons in bathrooms, and now we're talking about like power dynamics
oh, it's crazy.
in the digital age, right? It's like corporate influence, political moves. Like, are we losing trust in the platforms that we use every single day?
I mean, it's a good question.
It's something to think about, for sure.
And that's what we're going to keep exploring, right?
Exactly.
In the next part of this deep dive,
let's do it.
We're going to be looking at the potential consequences of Meta's kind of shift towards a less inclusive environment.
Okay.
And what that could mean for all of us.
Sounds good.
The users.
Looking forward to it. You know, one thing that really jumps out at me is like just the level of distrust people have towards these big tech companies. It's like palpable in the Reddit thread.
Totally. I mean, remember that whole thing, that quote from Zuckerberg?
Oh, yeah.
Where he called like early Facebook users dumb fucks.
Oh, yeah. If Fascism 9 brought that up, like that sentiment has not gone away for a lot of people.
It hasn't.
No.
And then you have, you know, comments like Krusty Buttcheek saying, you don't get to $1 billion by being anyone's friend.
Oh, yeah.
Or Mrs. Mitchpitch, like wondering if Zuck even has friends.
Yeah, that's a good point.
It really paints a picture.
It does.
Of like how people view him.
Yeah, like he's playing a different game.
Right, exactly.
Oh, yeah.
And then Legend 10X brought up that whole thing about Zuckerberg maybe running for president.
Oh, right, yeah.
Back in 2020. It adds to that whole vibe of distrust.
It does. It feels like they're all in it for the power.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
And comments like Qualmington saying that one party is just against the poor.
Right.
Or Steampunk Me, who calls Zuck like a red pill.
Yeah.
It's all very polarized.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like everyone's trying to like figure out what's going on in his head.
Yeah.
Like, what's he thinking?
What's his game?
You know?
Yeah.
Antika Kibna 1600 basically said that CEOs just care about profits.
Right. It goes deeper than that.
Yeah, it's like it's more than that.
I think this is where we need a little critical thinking, right?
Yes, exactly.
We can't just look at this one decision about the tampons like in isolation.
Right.
It's part of like a bigger strategy. It's happening against this backdrop of, you know, a changing political landscape.
Right.
And we also have to like think about misinformation and bias online.
Right.
It's complicated.
Yeah, like we started with tampons in bathrooms, and now we're talking about like the fate of the digital world.
Yeah, exactly.
Like corporate influence, political moves.
Yeah.
Are we losing trust in the platforms that we use every day?
I mean, it's a valid question.
Yeah.
Like these little things are like canaries in the coal mine.
Right.
Like they're telling us that bigger shifts are happening.
Yeah.
And maybe even bigger problems are coming.
Right. It's like it's a wake-up call. Like we need to be careful.
Be more discerning.
About what we see, what we believe online.
Be critical of the things that we're reading.
Yeah, it's like we can't just passively consume information anymore.
Right, exactly. You know, we can't be passive. No. We have to question things, analyze them.
Right.
You know?
Hold these companies accountable.
Exactly. Hold these powerful people in these companies accountable.
Okay, so we've talked about the facts of the situation.
Yeah.
We've seen what people are saying on Reddit.
Right.
We looked at the latest Metal Eye report.
Yeah.
But what about the people who are, like, actually affected by this decision?
That's a good question.
Like the transgender and non-binary employees at Meta.
Right. Yeah. The Reddit thread was mostly focused on the bigger picture.
Right.
But we can't forget about the people who this actually impacts, like on a daily basis.
Right. Like honorary math teacher pointed out that some transgender men, they might still need tampons.
Right.
Even though they use the men's bathroom.
Yeah.
It's about like...
It's about their gender identity, aligning with their gender identity.
Right, even if they still menstruate.
Exactly.
So it really highlights like the need for inclusivity in the workplace, like
Totally.
taking away those tampons,
Uh-huh.
regardless of why, it kind of sends a message.
Yeah.
Like,
whether they meant to or not.
yeah, whether it was intentional or not, it does impact like how
Yeah.
safe and welcome people feel.
Oh, absolutely.
And what about like some of the alternative solutions?
Yeah. Wow. What about
Like
that?
Occupy 7-8-11 thought that maybe providing them directly to employees,
Right.
like at their desks, could work.
At their desks.
Yeah.
That's
It's like a practical solution.
it is. Yeah.
It addresses the needs of the people who need them.
Uh-huh.
And maybe it gets around whatever logistical issues were,
Right.
part of this decision.
That caused the removal in the first place.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But then you have users like Ish the Halcyon and Setska
Yeah.
who are like, do tampons even belong in men's bathrooms at all?
Right.
It's like that brings up the whole...
like a cultural thing, right? Yeah, it's like the cultural context.
Yeah.
Where different places have different levels of understanding.
Yeah.
When it comes to gender identity.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
the needs of transgender and non-binary people
yeah.
aren't always considered.
Don't always acknowledged or met.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
It's a reminder that we have to have these conversations.
Have these conversations carefully.
Yeah, with sensitivity.
Sensitivity and nuance and be willing to learn from different perspectives.
Exactly. It's like even a decision that seems purely logistical can have a deeper meaning.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. It can really affect people's lives.
Absolutely, yeah.
In a real way.
So we're navigating this...
It's complex.
Yeah, this complicated landscape of corporate decisions, political undertones, and how it all plays out socially.
Right.
What does this mean for Meta's future?
That's the question, isn't it?
Yeah, and,
what does it all mean?
More broadly, what does it mean for, the online world?
Yeah, for the future.
What we're all part of.
The internet, social media, all of it.
Exactly, and that's what we're going to...
That's the big question.
That's what we're going to be looking at in the final part of our deep dive.
Okay.
We're going to be exploring, what might happen if Meta keeps moving towards a less inclusive environment.
Right.
And what that could mean for you, the users.
Sounds good.
It really makes you think about this whole idea of corporate social responsibility.
Yeah.
For years, companies like Meta, right, they've been, praised for their...
progressive values.
Yeah, their progressive values, their focus on diversity and inclusion.
Right.
And now it's with all these changes, it's are they going back on their word?
Yeah, it feels like a betrayal almost.
Yeah, a lot of people who saw Meta as a leader in this space, they're feeling kind of betrayed.
They feel lied to.
Yeah, and it makes you wonder, were they ever really committed?
Yeah, were those commitments
to those values in the first place?
Yeah.
Or was it all just for show?
Right. Was it just that virtue signaling? Yeah. Is that what you're talking about?
Just to, make themselves look good?
Yeah, boost their image.
And what about, the impact on their platforms themselves?
Right. That's a big one.
Remember, OK Technician 7789 and their concerns about bias, especially in political content.
Oh, yeah.
Could a less diverse work environment actually lead to,
it's not impossible.
Biased algorithms.
Yeah, if the people making the algorithms aren't coming from diverse backgrounds.
Right.
It stands to reason that their biases could end up in the technology.
So if Meta keeps going down this path, what could this mean for,
for online community?
The future of online community.
The future of the internet as we know it.
Right, and how we consume information, right?
Yeah, that's the question.
It's will everything be filtered through this less inclusive lens?
Yeah, are we going to end up in echo chambers where only certain voices are heard and amplified?
And what about us, the users?
Yeah, what can we do?
Do we just sit back and, watch this happen?
Right, are we just...
Or do we have a responsibility to,
passive observers?
Yeah, hold these platforms accountable.
I think we have a responsibility.
Yeah.
We have a voice and a choice.
Right, exactly.
We can choose to engage with the content critically.
Yes.
To challenge misinformation and bias when we see it.
Right. We
can support platforms that align with our values.
Yeah, and we can also choose to, to disengage. Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
We could step away from those platforms that aren't serving us.
Exactly.
And find other spaces, right?
Find spaces that prioritize inclusivity and respect.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a choice.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, we'll leave you with this thought, okay?
Okay, hit me.
If Meta keeps shifting towards a less inclusive environment, what could that mean for online communities?
Yeah.
And how we consume information?
It's It's a tough question.
I know it is.
It's a question without easy answers.
Yeah, no easy answer.
But it's one worth asking.
Absolutely.
It's something we have to grapple with.
It really is. And like the choices that we make today,
yeah,
both individually and as a society,
as a whole,
will determine what happens in the future.
They really will.
Yeah, it's crazy to think about, but
it's true.
Well, thanks for joining us on this deep dive, everybody.
Yeah, thanks for listening.
We hope this has given you, some food for thought.
Some things to ponder.
And until next time, keep exploring.
Keep questioning.
Keep questioning.
Keep the conversation going.
Exactly. Thanks again.